Hello and welcome to Weekly Fix. This week, we have some exciting announcements to make. We have a not so exciting announcement and not that much content. So it's going to be an exciting journey. We have a new logo to display. Hopefully, you're already looking at it. If you're listening to this, that you clicked on it, you didn't think it was a different podcast, that you still realize that this is the same one. We had my good friend Kenny. He made that for us. Shout out to Kenny Conger. Awesome. Just killed it. Pretty much way better than I could ask for. And just took it and ran with it. So I'm super excited. So let us know what you think about it. If you don't forget our contact information is always down in the description. So if you have any questions or comments, I know we say that at the end of the podcast, but I wanted to say it at the beginning today just to make sure that everyone knows, hey, we want to hear from you. We want to hear what you want to hear, like what you want us to talk about. If you have any complaints with what we're saying, please, we'd love to have the conversation. So hit us up at those areas where you can contact us on Instagram, Twitter, or X as it is. But we're back. And Jacob still has computer issues. I don't know if y'all noticed, but his mic did not sound near as good as it usually does. He's still struggling through some computer issues, so he is on the cell phone again today. But we're glad to have him regardless, because it wouldn't be the same without you. Jacob, how was your week?
Oh, great week. Like you said, hopefully my mic is not such a turn off that you guys click off the podcast, because I am working diligently on trying to get my computer fixed. I have no idea what the issue is, but the week was great. Me and the wife had a little getaway down to Pigeon Forge for a little marriage retreat that our church does, which is always a really good time. Had lots of fun down there. But it's always nice to get back home, because usually by the time you get home, you need a vacation from vacation. So that's about how we were when we finally got back, because we did so much running around and all that stuff. But all in all, great week.
Well, good. Yeah. So being away, I'm sure you didn't intake too much content over the past week. I know my family was down. We had my niece's birthday. So my mom was in, so we really didn't watch much of anything last week either. But have you been able to catch up on anything?
So the only thing I'm caught up on, which is I guess really the only thing I'm currently watching, is the Bad Batch. I'm still absolutely loving it. I think the show is really good. The show seems to be starting to pick up some pace after those first few episodes, which I'm excited about, because as all of these animated Star Wars shows go, there's lots of filler, but I feel like even the filler this season has been really important to the character development, which is nice to see. It's not just pointless filler. So that's been good, but that's really about all I've had to watch. We're still in that post-Dune depression stage. So it's nice to have something to watch. And we got quite a few things coming up. We know we have Invincible coming back soon. I'm excited for the Fallout show that's coming out in April, so we're not too far away from that. But yeah, currently just caught up on the Bad Batch.
Yeah, I'm actually pretty close to being caught up on the Bad Batch. I think I'm like 7 minutes away from finishing episode 4. I did want to talk about that a little bit. Have you enjoyed Crosshair's arc?
Yeah, and that's kind of where I was going at with even the filler episodes. Feel like they actually have some importance to the character. I feel like he's starting to turn around a little bit. It's an interesting arc, because you really still don't trust him, which I don't think he's at the point where he's going to betray the Bad Batch again. But he's kind of at that point where the only reason he's working with them is because he was betrayed by the Empire. So he's still just kind of jumping sides as to whichever one is going to treat him the way he feels like he needs to be treated, which is a really interesting character arc. But all in all, I do think it is a good arc, because it's something that is, he really is battling with the idea of just being where he feels like he is being treated the proper way, or at least how he feels he should be treated.
Well, and I don't think he betrayed them the first time because they were treating him poorly. I think his allegiance just in his duty was why he betrayed them the first time. And then when he saw that even with everything that he did right, he was still betrayed, he kind of developed kind of that me first mentality.
Mm-hmm. Well, you even hear him say that. He does say, he did what he did because he was trying to be a good soldier that follows orders. So he really was just trying to stick true to what, he knew what he was comfortable doing. But yeah, I have enjoyed his character arc overall, and I've enjoyed this season a lot so far. I really think we're in for some pretty heart-wrenching episodes. It really does feel like we're leading up to something kind of big, which I feel like seasons in the past do take a while to even get to that point where you really see the story fully come full circle. I feel like this one's starting to get into that really quickly. I feel like they're trying to build this, relationship with these characters that we have early on rather than later. Like last season, we got that relationship with Tech. Ultimately, he does die at the end of the season, or so we think. We still really don't have confirmation on if he's dead or not. But it seems like this season they're getting into that a little quicker with us trying to pull at our heartstrings a little bit more with Crosshair and his feelings and all that.
Yeah, which is good. I think they're doing a great job with it. It's not a whole bunch of like I don't have a whole bunch to even add to the show. I'm just kind of just like enjoying it as we go, and I think once we get some of that bigger arc that you're talking about, once it starts hitting, I think we'll have a lot more to say about that.
Yeah, for sure.
But something I do have, I said I wasn't going to talk about it. But I'm going to talk about it a little bit more. I did finish Avatar, the live action Airbender, the Last Airbender. Finish the show. And I will say, the last 3 episodes were better than anything that came before. So that's good. And in this show, not in general, but in this show, it was better than anything that came before. However, there's one line I really wanted to talk about because it annoys the mess out of me. And so Aang is talking to the master waterbender of the Northern Water Tribe. And he says, he asked him, like, hey, like, you're the Avatar, you can clearly bend, you're the master of all 4 elements. Like, we'll stand, they'll stand no chance attacking us with the Avatar on the side. And, Aang says, actually, I only can airbend because he hasn't waterbended a single time in book 1 at all. Hasn't even tried to, hasn't made an attempt. He's literally not even done it. And the master up at the Northern Water Temple says, man, maybe you should have focused a little bit more on your bending training during your travel. And it's like, are you trying to be meta? Are you trying to be meta and be like, yeah, we should have, but like we're going to say it in the show? So like, but we didn't. Oh my goodness.
I just everything I've heard about this show, it just continues to be a reason as to why I'm not going to watch it.
And I'm bringing it up.
And the fact that, we're going to get to this, I'm sure it was the next thing for you to talk about, but the fact that it's getting a second and a third season already, I just don't know if it's doing better than we think it is because it's got a lot of people that maybe didn't watch the cartoon back in the day, that maybe this is their first introduction into the Avatar: The Last Airbender show, and maybe that those people are enjoying it because they don't know how good it was previously. I just don't understand how a show like this is getting a second and third season when I have not seen or read or heard a single good thing about the show. Like you saying the last 3 episodes were better overall for this show, that's the best thing I've heard about the entire show.
It's a positive.
I don't know who's in charge at Netflix. I don't know if they had already paid so much money for this that they're trying to just already dug the hole so they have to stay true to it.
Dude,
it just doesn't make any sense.
It is pumping some crazy numbers. Let me tell you this. It got 19.9 million views from February 26th to March 3rd in its first week.
I mean, that's pretty good.
That's really, really good.
So I guess maybe that's what I'm saying. Maybe there's a large audience out there that doesn't, this is their first introduction to it. Maybe they're interested in the world and all that stuff because it still is a really cool world. It still is Avatar at the end of the day. But you would just think with as bad as the acting and everything is that people would just be like, you know what? I don't think I'm going to be able to watch through this. But I guess people are figuring it out and enjoying it in their own way.
Yeah, and I mean, the thing is, like, so I'm trying to find the kickoff. So the Witcher series, throughout the entire series, apparently got 76 million views, which was like a crazy success for Netflix. So it's not to those numbers, but I mean, 19.9 million views is still a bunch, and it has a 7.3 on IMDb, which is very, very strong for an animated show, like crazy
Yeah.
strong. So like you saying, like I don't know if this is people who didn't like the animated show and was like, man, this, they really could have done a lot better. Or if this is people who aren't introduced to the world, but like find it fascinating because it is fascinating. But even regardless, man, so watching this show has made me just really miss Avatar. And so I'm rewatching the original, and man, I'm just getting more and more frustrated with it. Oh man, it's so many times I'm like, man, they just felt like that was not important. Didn't need that. Oh yeah, nope, didn't need that. And it's like Aang and Katara's relationship. Scrap that junk. Don't need that.
You know,
Let's.
I feel like the one hope for this show is, if this does happen, is sometimes the first season of a show, people can see that there is a foundation to it and that there is a story to be told, which we know that the story there to be told just isn't being accurately, I haven't watched it, but by all accounts, it is not being accurately told in the way that we feel it should be told. And like you said, when the original showrunners and writers of the show backed out, I think that says a lot about it. However, you do hear about shows sometimes coming out of the gate stumbling, but they don't stumble quite so bad that the show is just, hated on completely. I think that is the one shining hope of the show, is it does have good viewers. Maybe the writers and stuff will take some of these criticisms and actually try to fix some of those things. And we've seen shows have really, really strong second seasons and third seasons and so on. So maybe this will just be one of those shows that, the first season's one of those seasons you just got to get through. But then once you get through it, season two is way better. The actors get more mature. I mean, we know there's a lot of kid actors, and I think this is some actors, it's their first role ever, if I'm not mistaken. So maybe they'll learn some tricks and stuff like that on how to act better overall. So I think that's the one shining hope of the show, is that it is doing well. Maybe some of these writers and stuff will take some of these criticisms to heart, and maybe some of these actors, they'll just continue to grow because they're so new to it in general.
Which, I mean, I hope it does good. I'm not just trying to bash on it. Like, I don't want this show to go bad. If anyone's listening to the podcast, week by week, they know how excited I was for this show.
Yeah.
So it's not like I'm
well,
just
and the
over
fact that
here.
you even finished season
Yeah.
one says a lot, that you wanted it to get better.
I did. I really, really did. And that really just sucks. But yeah, we're getting a season 2 and a season 3. And I don't know. I don't know if I will reward them for bad behavior. And that's kind of where I'm getting at. Like, do you watch bad shows of beloved IPs just because you love the IP? Because it kind of encourages that to continue to be made, right?
Yeah.
Like, as far as Netflix is concerned, this was a complete and total win. They were successful. Like, let's throw it out again. We're going to renew it. And so, like, I don't know where I stand on, do I continue to give this views because I like the IP, or do I take a stand and don't watch it?
Well, I feel like it's one of those things, you've suffered through the first season. So I feel like you're going to have to start the second season. Now, if the second season starts off as bad as the first is, I think that tells you all you need to know, that this just isn't going to be a show for you. But if you are one of those people that maybe you weren't as happy with the first season as apparently others were, I think you're obviously going to have to give the second season a chance to see if they fix some of the things. And, you can deal with the bad acting, you can deal with certain things, but just the idea of them throwing out so many key story elements, that's the part I really struggle with even wanting to even attempt to watch the show. Is I'm just going to be so disappointed when this thing that I really liked in the animated series just doesn't happen.
Yeah.
So I think that's the biggest struggle. I think maybe that might even be your biggest struggle, is because that's one of the things I know you've mentioned quite a bit. You even just mentioned it. You're rewatching through the animated series. You're like, man, why did they cut that? And I feel like that's the hard part. That's the hard pill to swallow, is the fact that some of these beloved scenes you're not getting, when you feel like almost if those were there, you can kind of look the other way from the bad acting and stuff like that. Because from what I've seen, the show looks good. Like,
I think
the graphics, it looks really good. You can tell they spent the money on that stuff. But it's just when you cut out some of those key story elements. I know for me personally, that would be something I'd definitely struggle with.
It's not even so much the cutting out as it is changing. And one of the greatest examples is kind of King Booey or Boomy, and how they changed him to kind of be a bitter old man towards Aang instead of the encouraging, joyful friend that encourages him to continue in the trials, actually having sense and stakes. Katara and Sokka were engulfed in this creeping crystal the entire time Aang was having to go through these trials, and he was having to be creative and find new ways to break through it and to finish it. And Boomy was trying to teach him how to look at things differently. And in the live action show, he didn't have to think in anything. He literally blew his way as an airbender through almost all of the trials. And at the end, Boomy tries to make him kill him, and it's it doesn't, he's literally you're gonna have to make hard choices. The world's changed, and the Avatar needs to change with it and understand that you're gonna have to make these hard choices. And it's that. Well, he's just super bitter at it, and that's crazy compared to what he was in the show. And so cutting out or changing the trials, as long as they had some creative method for what the trial was, and having making Aang learn something, making him think creatively, or sticking with the heart of why he King Boomy made him go through those trials would be one thing. And then there's absolutely zero stakes because it's just Aang. So he's not doing it because Katara and Sokka are in trouble, and without Boomy's help, they would die. In the or else he would have just left. He wouldn't have stayed there. And so that's my issue with the show, is taking crucial parts of Aang's development, key characters that will reappear, and changing them. And that's not, but still trying to stick to the story. You can't do both. You can't stick to the story and change it. Or I would rather them just tell a new story.
That's what
completely change it.
Yeah,
rather than
you have to pick.
Yeah,
you can't. You got to get on one side or the other. And it seems like this show has really struggled with that aspect.
They really have. But that's okay. All right. But anyway, we're gonna move on from that. That's way more.
What would you rate season 1? Let's hear your 1 through 10 rating. We like to throw out ratings on the show. What would you give season 1 of Avatar: The Last Airbender? And I know you said you don't want to reward bad behavior, but will you watch season 2 when it airs?
Okay, so I think I will try it to see if it gets better, because I want to give these actors a chance. I want to give the show a chance, and if they become creative and can course correct, then I'm all for it. I'm all for giving people second chances. That's what we're all about. Chris Evans, he got a second chance as Captain America after the Human Torch, and most beloved, one of the most beloved superhero live action characters now of all time. So I'm all for second chances. So I'll give it a second chance, but I don't think I'll finish it if it continues to be terrible.
Okay.
My rating, 5 out of 10.
Okay. Which is kind of where you were at. I guess you gave it, I think it was a little lower before.
I think I stayed the same. The same. And that's only because I finished it. If I would have turned it off, I probably would have gave it a 3 or a 4.
Yeah.
Which, if I turn off the second season, it's probably going to go down to a 3.
Oh man. Well, I guess we probably have a while, because I guess they haven't done any filming or anything like that, because they just got renewed.
Well, they'll have to do it immediately, because these kids,
I'm sure they're probably starting.
These kids cannot age.
You can't age,
or else it'll ruin everything.
Which, to be fair, though, Stranger Things has done a good job of making those kids, still look young and things like that. And, with the special effects and all the makeup and stuff we have nowadays, it can be done, but it still does take away somewhat from that authenticity of the show in a way.
Yeah, it does.
So,
but anyway, all right, moving forward. A big announcement I was not expecting, but was something I hadn't even looked out into, or didn't even know to look out for, was the Dune Awakening MMO. I sent you that trailer. Had you seen that already?
Yeah, I had watched that, and yeah, I love stuff like that. It is going to be interesting, and it's funny because I talked to a bunch of friends that also game and stuff. We are so going back in time with these video games based on, movie licenses and stuff. We are getting so many of those recently. I mean, we have the Spider-Man games and all that stuff and how much success they're having. It is so funny that we're going back in time because historically a lot of those games really really suck. So I'm hoping that we've kind of had a turning point with video games with how good Spider-Man is. And there's other ones I'm not even thinking of right now, but we've kind of seen the opposite where we have a lot of video games turning into shows. So it kind of makes sense that we're seeing video games or shows turn back into video games again. It's kind of, I guess, the natural progression of this stuff. But I do think it is interesting. I think it has a really good story there. But one thing I'm interested in is obviously it's on Arrakis. Arrakis is just a big desert rock. I'm going to be interested to see how they can make it interesting and if they're going to give us stuff to do, but still stick true to the world of Dune. You don't want to see them venture out and just make it seem completely not Dune, but I guess you might have to a little bit with it. But I do think the trailer looks good, and I'm sure it's going to do pretty well just because of how big that name is right now. There's going to be a lot of people that at least give it a shot. So I'm definitely interested in it, and I'll probably give it a shot when it comes out.
Yeah, I'm definitely along the lines of kind of wait and see what the reviews are like for it.
Yeah.
It looks cool. It's just not really a game style that I kind of would gravitate towards.
Hmm.
Anything that you kind of like massive multiplayer online games where you have to spend time to level up kind of immediately like takes me out of it because I can't keep up with the
Yeah.
population that's on it. So that's kind of why I drifted away from Tarkov is because the Escape from Tarkov because you have to have so much hours into it to even make it enjoyable. And if you get behind during a wipe, like to me, who's bad at the game, who is trying to learn it, like it's just not fun when everyone's running around with armor that you can't shoot through because you're this noob with no actual good weapons, and
Yep.
to get upgraded you have to just grind hours and hours and hours.
Or
um
get lucky.
no, I mean, you literally you have like even if you get lucky, like there's no guarantee you can use it. Like recoil in that game is not like a learned pattern. It's a character skill developed by hours in the game. And so like
Yeah, you
that's not good for me. When that's immediately a no-go.
see.
So
I was never any good at Tarkov, and I played a few wipes. And my favorite gun ended up just being it's called I think it was like the Gurnostov or something like that. It was the bolt action sniper that you literally could buy at level 1. That became my favorite gun. I knew like if you didn't have to invest a whole lot of time, and you could build like you could start crafting the best ammo for that gun, and it could pin through like level 3 and sometimes level 4 armor. If you were lucky with where you hit them. That's because I knew I couldn't keep up. I learned how to use guns like that, and then usually I would just get a kill, pray that I didn't die on the way out, and maybe I came out with a better gun. But yeah, I understand what you're saying. It's just especially a game like that because you do not level up quickly, and then if you want to level up, you got to do quests. And there's so many other players that are just camping quest locations just to kill little noobs like us. So it's definitely a rough game. But I can see what you're saying. If you do fall behind in some of these games, it does take a lot of the fun out of it.
and I don't know that Dune Awakening is going to be like that. And it does seem super fun. The trailer is visually like it looks great.
Yeah.
But I don't know if this is my type of game anymore. Yeah, I'm sure like 6 years ago I probably would have been all over it. But now I think I'm more of a kind of play it when you can kind of dude.
Yeah. 100%.
So
Well, I used to be the same way. I used to be like, oh man, I can dump hours and hours into games, and used to do it with Call of Duty, and I still do it every year when Call of Duty comes out. I always make time for that because it's just an addiction that I haven't learned to overcome. However, I have gotten the same way. I just don't have time to play as many of those games anymore. That's why I've a lot of the time gravitated more towards single player games recently. Just kind of play when I can, get through it, and stuff like that. So I understand the same thing. Usually, I can keep up with those type of games for maybe a week or two. And that's me making time to get on and play them. But after that week, life catches back up with you. You've got a lot of chores you didn't do the past week, so it's almost just not even worth doing anymore.
Now, speaking of games that you spent hours and hours of playing, um, were you able to complete your February game?
Oh, absolutely not. I mean, with these computer issues, they started. We did one podcast when I had warned you I had started having computer issues. Right before we started, I was like, hey, just in case if I quit talking or something, my computer froze. That was the last podcast that I was able to make it longer than like an hour of my computer not doing the freezing thing. And where I have my PS5 and my Xbox both run through my PC with the audio and video so I can like stream and record and all that stuff, I haven't been able to play games. I did get about, before that happened, I think I got around like 30 hours of Helldivers in. And I got close to getting the platinum done. And if I wouldn't have started having PC issues, I would have definitely got it because I only need 2 more trophies. And those 2 trophies are literally just basically playing the game. So if I wouldn't have had those issues, I definitely would have got it because I just had to complete 100 missions. And I don't need too many more of those. I think I need like 20 more missions completed. And then I just had to collect samples, which samples you just get from running around in the missions or these little things you pick up. And then you use those to upgrade your character. And that's just stuff I literally just don't have time to do because my computer just randomly freezes on me. So unfortunately, I did not do that, but I am getting close to it. So hopefully I can fix my computer and wrap up that platinum. And then I'll try to pick a platinum that hopefully doesn't take too long so I can catch up here in March. But I might have to wait a little while into the year to maybe do 2 games in 1 month later on just to catch up.
Yeah, you should definitely do Baldur's Gate for one of those platinums.
Oh, I don't know if that would be a good game for me to catch up on, but maybe if I can somehow get really far ahead in my games each month. I might need 3 or 4 months stocked up for that game, but
yeah, no, I was gonna say if you're gonna give up on this platinum journey for the year because of this, when you get your computer fixed, maybe you could just say your goal is going to complete an honor mode run in Baldur's Gate.
No, I hate to break it to you. I don't think that's going to happen. I think I'm just trying to play a bunch of other games and get the platinum just to catch up.
Okay, fair enough.
But Baldur's Gate, it's on my list of games to eventually get to. But I don't know. That one's quite the big undertaking that I don't think I'm going to commit to.
Oh, but it's amazing. It's a good journey.
I believe you.
Just got to make good choices, and the game's okay. I've heard some people have made some questionable choices, and their game is significantly different than mine.
Well, that's the cool thing about that game is, and the funny thing is, you can't even help them through that because you're like, you know what? I don't even know how to fix what you did. So
yeah. Well, I think they're happy with it.
Hopefully, I get to finish up Helldivers in March. Hopefully, my computer issue is not anything crazy. And then after that, I really don't know what I'm going to move to. We have some fun old games coming out. Like we have the Star Wars Battlefront 1 and 2 remake collection coming back out, which that I grew up on that game on like the PS2 and stuff. So that's definitely a game I hope I can give a shot in the future. So maybe I'll make that my platinum because I think it's supposed to have trophies and stuff. So that would be fun. But who knows? Hopefully, like I said, the computer thing's not that big a deal. But and I'm sure the listeners, the ones that are sticking with us, I'm sure they hope that it's not that big of a deal issue either, so they don't have to listen to this microphone anymore.
We need your mic back. Back.
Maybe I could find a way to rig up my mic to my phone, but
that shouldn't be too difficult.
I don't know. It is. I think I could probably get a USB to USB-C adapter or something like that. And
maybe you could
adapter.
Yeah, maybe.
I don't know if the software of the mic would even I don't know if the phone would even register it as a microphone. It might, but
you could probably hook up your old gaming headset if you have an audio jack. That's usually pretty easy with pretty good audio.
Well, I'd have to get. I'd still need the same thing. I would need a USB to USB-C and a Lightning to USB-C adapter.
Let's just go ahead and fix your computer. We can trouble.
I think that honestly might be simpler than trying to figure out a way to rig up a mic to my phone, but
I'm sure
maybe
I'm sure
not. You never know with computer issues. It would be nice if when you turn your computer on, if it was like, hey, this is a problem, you should probably look at it. But no, they make you figure it out.
Yeah, well, that's the PC Master Race burden to bear.
Man, I don't. I used to say that. I remember when I got my first. I used to have a gaming laptop. That was the first PC I ever played on, and I used to say the same thing. And then when I built my computer, I was like, oh yeah, PC is just better. I do not agree anymore. Consoles, So much simpler. You don't ever have to mess with a setting. You literally just put a disc in or download the game and start playing. I miss those days. Those, if we go back to anything, that's what I go back to. Is just console players. So
Yeah,
much
but you can't
simpler.
can't record a podcast quite as well on a.
I'm not saying PCs are good for that stuff, but I'm talking about gaming. Gaming, I could do without. If I could just go back in time and just use a console, you don't have as many hackers on games on console. It was much better. But I'll die on that ship, I'm sure, because everyone else is probably like, no, PCs are better. But whatever.
Well, I'm not. I'm a filthy casual, so I don't even have a say in it. So, but our last topic for today is, I don't know if you saw it or not, but Bob Iger had an interview, and during this interview, he said, trying to pull it up real quick so that I'm not just going off the cusp, but they were talking about movies and the state of Disney and all of their IPs. And he said, it's not an easy thing, but you got to make those tough calls. And he's talking about canceling films here. And he said, we've actually made those tough calls. We've not been public about it, but we've killed a few projects already that we just didn't feel were strong enough. And so, like, that's pretty crazy. And then he goes on to say, a lot of people think it's audience fatigue. It's not audience fatigue. They want great films. And if you build it great, they will come, and there are countless examples of that. Some of them are ours, and some are others. Oppenheimer is a perfect example of that. Just a fantastic film. Focus is really important. We reduce the output of Marvel, both number of films they make and the number of TV shows, and that really becomes critical. But I feel good about the team. I feel good about the IP we're making.
Well, so I take that as two different ways. Do you think that is things that they have already trashed that we even know about? Because I kind of look at that as maybe those are projects we might not have ever heard of. And they're things that they were like, you know what, this could have potential. And now they're like, you know what, let's not even go that route.
Nope.
That's something I'd be interested to know.
I think this is announced projects that have been canned.
So I wonder when we're going to hear which ones they are. Because eventually someone's going to ask the question of where is Armor Wars, for example. I don't know if that's one of them. But they got to have a list of those that are actually canceled. So I'd be interested to see that. And going back to the whole fatigue thing, we've talked about it before. I don't think we both agree. I don't think there is superhero fatigue. I really do think it does come down to the films have just not been as good. There's not been a reason to go to the theater. And, so much, I think a lot of that has to do with streaming. So many people are willing to wait a few extra months just to get it on their streaming platform. And I get that. It's not cheap to go to the movies and everything. But at the end of the day, if the movie is good enough, you're going to get people out of their homes to go to the theater. So I'm happy to hear that they're cutting back on stuff, because Marvel was at its best when, I love the shows, but it was at its best when we were just getting movies every so often. And some of the shows are great. I do hope they continue the shows, but they definitely do need to slow down, because it seems like there for a while they were putting out stuff just to put it out, because they thought just because it was Marvel, it was going to do numbers.
Yeah, and I know some of that happened. I mean, probably around the Born Again time when Daredevil got
Announced, kind of.
remade.
Yeah.
So when they had a creative overhaul, I'm sure maybe around that time is when he kind of said, "Hey, like we gotta stop. If you're openly doing this, maybe we can this." So maybe like Agatha the Darkhold Diaries falls off. Maybe Thunderbolts doesn't get filmed. Blade, which has been a pre-production nightmare, maybe that one falls off. Kang Dynasty has already been reworked into something else, because I think they're going away from Kang. Then you mentioned Armor Wars, Ironheart. Ironheart is already completely filmed. It's a complete film. It's just sitting on a shelf somewhere.
That's what I'm saying. There's some of this stuff they're going to have to come out with. And it's going to come down to, we've already spent the money on it. Let's at least put it out there to get some money back.
I think he's saying the exact opposite. I think he's saying,
oh, you don't think so?
I think he's saying it's worth saving the IP to shelve some of these projects than to put out product and have them lose faith. Because think of how good the name of Marvel would still be if Echo wasn't released. Echo did nothing on that one. Echo didn't make any money for Marvel. Not a single thing.
I hated that show.
because anything it brought in, it lost in future payout. Because there's gonna be people
Dude.
who aren't like me and that watch stuff regardless of past projects. And they're gonna say, you know what, I'm not watching Daredevil. If you're just gonna bait me with Daredevil, not give me Daredevil, you know what? I'm just not gonna watch anything in the future. And
Yeah.
so I think Bob Iger is taking a stand here and saying, listen, I'm a money man. I'm not a creative man. I'm a money man. You brought me in to save Disney, to save this ship that's sinking. You brought me back, and I'm canning a bunch of this stuff. And so I think we may never see Iron Wars. I think we may never see Armor Wars, Ironheart. I think there's a few things we just may never see. Blade may never make it to the screen. And some of that's really unfortunate, but some of it may be really good. So,
Well, let's hope he has the same, thought process with Star Wars, and that he fires Kathleen Kennedy, and that we shelf this whole new Rey movie. Let's hope that stuff carries over to Star Wars, because
well,
Star Wars is on its way there. Obviously, they don't have quite the production output that Marvel has had recently, but they're working up to that. If they don't start being careful with some of the things that they're putting out, I think we could see another thing. And they fought so hard to get Star Wars back to where it is after how bad people hated those sequel movies. And I do have to say, there is still a large fan base for the sequel movies, but overall, you did lose a lot of fans with those. And I'm sure there's a lot of people that haven't ever even given the shows a chance because of that. But then you had The Mandalorian be such a big hit, and it brought so many people back. And it seems like Star Wars is starting to get back to its glory days in a way. So I hope that they take that same approach and don't just start putting out something just for the sake of putting it out, because that's when you see things, just like you said, the ship starts to sink, and instead of filling your bucket and throwing it out, you're just basically pouring more buckets of water into the ship. So let's hope that Disney as a whole tries to fix some of this stuff. But I would be interested to see, eventually he's going to have to announce, someone's going to have to put out that list of things that are canceled, because we're just not going to see it. So I definitely am interested to see what that is.
well, and I do think some of these were not just. I think he was talking about Disney films in total. I don't think he was strictly talking about only Marvel.
Yeah, for sure. That's what I was saying. Hopefully, some of this stuff is bleeding into the Star Wars. Even some of these Disney live action movies that they've started to do. I've heard some of them are just absolutely terrible. So,
well, Lilo and Stitch is coming out this year. Did you know that?
yes, I knew. Well, I knew it was coming out. I didn't know it was this year.
It's this year. It's in post production already.
There's so many. I've heard so much people complaining about the advertisement level of some of these things. Like, I know Kung Fu Panda 4 just came out. I was under the impression that movie was not coming out till later this summer, and it's out in the theaters now.
It dropped last weekend.
Yes, and when I saw that, I saw a thing. I think it was today. It was like Kung Fu Panda's only made like 3.8 million in its theatrical debut, and I was like, that movie's out. I was like, I haven't heard. Usually you're pumping out commercials and pumping out everything, saying go see it Friday or Thursday or whatever. I feel like I've seen none of that,
which is crazy. I mean, I knew it was coming out, but only because I live in the movie critic world.
Yeah,
on YouTube. That's pretty much the only reason I knew it was coming out.
Yeah, so hopefully, I mean, they did bring him back to try to write this thing that is Disney. Hopefully, they actually just let him do what he thinks he's done, because I think Disney was pretty successful under him. But we'll see what happens, I guess.
Yeah, I'm not a huge Bob Iger fan himself, but I think he is a pretty good businessman.
Yeah. So sometimes you just gotta let them, whether you agree with them or not.
Yeah,
at the end of the day, they know how to make money. So
that's right. Yeah, if you can make money, you can be successful.
Yep, I think that's the name of the game.
But wow, that's some words of wisdom here from your host Zane.
Yeah, that's gonna be
that's a John
Madden in our bio.
Yeah, if you can make money, you will be successful, which is completely opposite to my actual beliefs. But I don't think success is valued in how much money you can make. But that's a topic for a different day.
I mean, they always say never see someone crying in a Ferrari, or I'd rather be crying in a Ferrari than in a bus. So
yeah, somebody told me, money can't make you happy, but I've never seen anyone on a jet ski sad.
Yeah, so just ask Mobius from Loki. I mean, I'm telling you, he knows what true happiness is, and that's being on that jet ski with the wind in your hair.
But I disagree. We know where true joy and true happiness comes from, with a satisfaction with knowing why you're here. knowing what you were meant to do. So, but with that, we got a little shorter episode for you this week. Thanks for sticking with us. Next week, we will be talking everything Invincible. It drops in
Yes.
3 days. I am absolutely stoked for it. Can't wait to see what they've cooked up for us there at Amazon Prime. And we hope to see you there. If you, again, contact us, send us questions, send us anything. If you got anything for us, let us know. But thanks for sticking with us here at Weekly Fix.